Welcome to Nigo Channel. Today's story will take you to the state of Louisiana, located in the southern part of the United States, bordering the Gulf of Mexico. Louisiana is known for its rich history and diverse culture, where the blending of French, Spanish, and African influences has created a unique and distinctive character. In the southeast of the state, there is a peaceful town called Slaughter. This place is known for its vast fields stretching to the horizon, picturesque landscapes, and a distinctly rural lifestyle. The people here mainly live off agricultural production, farming, and raising livestock, creating a uniquely serene atmosphere. Although the population is under 1,000, the residents of Slaughter are closely knit, forming a warm and friendly community. This harmonious environment has attracted many outsiders to move here and start a new life, including the Fletcher family. They were once a very happy family, well integrated into the community, but behind that peaceful exterior lay an unbelievable tragedy that led to a painful end for Lacey Fletcher. The Fletcher family was a wealthy one, consisting of 3 members. The father, Clay Fletcher, who was 65 years old, held a significant position in the nonprofit organization Baton Rouge Civil War Roundtable, which focuses on researching and discussing the American Civil War. This organization brings together historians, scholars, and enthusiasts who are passionate about key events and prominent figures from this turbulent period of history. With his status and reputation, Clay Fletcher was known as someone with a deep understanding of history. The wife, Sheila Fletcher, 1 year younger than her husband, was a respected town councilwoman with a wide social network and many connections within the community. They had an only daughter named Lacey Fletcher, who is 36 years old. Unfortunately, Lacey's health had been unstable for a long time. She suffered from multiple illnesses and was unable to work. For many years, Lacey could only stay at home to recover and was reportedly cared for by her parents at home. The Fletcher family resided in a quiet area near Town Drive in the town of Slaughter in a modest 2-story house with a beautiful garden and swimming pool. The entrance to their home was a cement driveway covered with gravel, surrounded by dense woods and expansive grassy areas. This area was quite tranquil and private, with neighboring houses set far apart, creating a comfortable and peaceful living environment. The picturesque landscape made life here seem almost ideal to many. This successful couple were devout individuals who regularly attended the local church to pray each week and earned the respect of the community. Besides their work, they enjoyed activities such as fishing, jogging, and traveling, and occasionally stayed home to care for their only daughter, Lacey. Next, we will travel back in time to January 3, 2022, to delve into the details of this story. January 3, 2022 was a Monday in the winter in Louisiana. Compared to many other areas, the weather here was still pleasant with warm sunlight and temperatures that were not too low. In the early morning, Clay and Sheila were returning home along the quiet country road of the town. The sky was still shrouded in the chilly night, with distant twinkling stars creating a tranquil and peaceful atmosphere. The roar of the car engine echoed through the still countryside fields, and before long, Clay and Sheila had arrived at their home on Town Drive. They parked behind the garage and walked across the lawn to the front door. Unlocking it with their key, they entered the house feeling relaxed, but inside, the air was filled with silence. As they touched the light switch on the wall and turned on the lights, a warm golden glow slowly dispelled the darkness. They continued down the hallway, heading towards the bedroom to rest, unaware that a terrible tragedy awaited them in this seemingly peaceful home. As they passed by the living room, they were stunned by the scene before them. They saw their daughter Lacey half-naked, lying motionless on the couch and looking dead. Mrs. Sheila knelt next to her daughter and burst into tears. Both husband and wife tried to suppress their pain and quickly called the police for quick assistance. 2 hours later, emergency responders quickly arrived at the house. Clay and Sheila stood at the door with faces full of panic and worrying. When they saw the emergency responders arrive, they hurriedly said, "We just went on a weekend trip and our daughter Lacey stayed home. When we came back, we found her lying on the sofa and she was no longer breathing." They further explained that Lacey had always been in very poor health, never left the house, and was diagnosed with self-confinement syndrome. This rare neurological disorder leaves patients completely or almost unable to move or speak like a normal person. Lacey could not control her muscles, and her only means of communicating with the outside world was through her eye movements or other nonverbal signals. These explanations only heightened the confusion and anxiety among the emergency responders as they began to grasp the severity of the situation. Although Lacey could not move her body, her awareness remained sharp, and her cognitive functions and perception were unaffected. Clay and Sheila further explained, "We had previously left our daughter home alone while traveling without any issues, but unfortunately, this time something went wrong. When the emergency team entered the house, they felt something strange and unusual. The air was filled with a terrible stench, like the smell of a toilet. In the living room, they saw Lacey, the girl lying on the brown leather sofa, her butt sunk into the sofa cavity, surrounded by feces and urine as if she had been sitting there for a long time. Lacey's condition also appeared very strange. She was only wearing a short blue patterned t-shirt that barely covered her chest, looking quite ill-fitting. Her body was tilted to one side, with her legs crossed and her right arm wrapped around her chest. Her brown eyes were wide open, and her mouth was slightly ajar, revealing her neatly aligned upper teeth. Lacey's body was marked with blotchy red spots, her face and skin smeared with feces, and her hair matted. Her skin bore countless mosquito bites, while severe ulcers and necrotic sores had eaten deep into her flesh, exposing bone in some areas. Maggots crawled all over the rotting wounds, gnawing at pieces of flesh, creating a horrifying and haunting scene that none of the emergency responders had ever witnessed. The sight left them horrified and nauseated, testing the very limits of their endurance. They couldn't bear it and immediately confirmed on the spot that Lacey had died and no longer needed emergency treatment. A few minutes later, a shrill siren broke the silence of the quiet town in the dead of night as a large police force arrived on the scene and cordoned off the entire area. Ewell Bickham, a highly respected forensic pathologist, quickly arrived at the scene and the official investigation began. Apart from the area around the sofa where Lacey lay, the rest of the house was neat and orderly, but the air was filled with a suffocating, nauseating odor. The sofa, positioned against the wall, had a low black table in front of it, cluttered with items such as wet wipes and talcum powder often used in cosmetics and personal care products like face powder and foundation. Next to these items were a bottle of nasal spray, a bottle of lotion, and a photo of Lacey as a young girl. Once mementos of a joyful past, they are now stark reminders of present tragedy. The weight of the scene weighed heavily on the hearts of everyone present at that time. These were believed to be the items Clay and Sheila used to clean their daughter Lacey. On the floor between the sofa and the low table were two old DVD cases, with the covers revealing they were children's movies. Watching films seemed to be one of the few sources of entertainment for Lacey. Next to the sofa stood a gray wardrobe, filled with Lacey's clothes piled up inside. A short distance away stood a simple commode, silently bearing witness to Lacey's tragic circumstances. Due to her inability to move, the entire sofa area had become her living space. At the time of her death, she weighed just over 43 kilograms, far below the average for an adult woman in Europe. The autopsy report revealed that she had been suffering from multiple serious conditions, including ulcers, bacterial infections, pressure sores from immobility, and even COVID-19. Lacey had suffered from acute malnutrition due to prolonged lack of food and sepsis caused by osteomyelitis. All of these factors combined, leading to her death. The time of death was estimated to be between 24 and 48 hours before she was found. During the autopsy, doctors discovered that her stomach was filled with pieces of the sofa's foam along with bodily waste. Forensic Dr. Bickham expressed suspicion that Lacey had been suffering from locked-in syndrome, a condition that leaves patients unable to feed themselves and entirely dependent on others for support. If she truly had this condition, she must have endured significant physical suffering in the time leading up to her death. The hunger, inability to care for herself, and feelings of abandonment weighed heavily on Lacey's mind and body, making her life more miserable than ever. When Lacey was found, her back and hips had turned completely black, and the skin on her buttocks and thighs had large ulcers. The wounds were mixed with feces and fused into the sofa's foam, with her body stuck to the leather cushion as if it were melting into the sofa. The cushion was severely deformed, and the leather on the armrests and backrest had worn away, losing its color. Forensic experts believe that Lacey had been living on the sofa for months, possibly even years. Medical records indicate that she was diagnosed with severe autism, along with an obsession and fear of interacting with the outside world. After the tragic incident, the police questioned Clay and Sheila to understand why their daughter had fallen into such a dreadful condition. The couple told the police, "We always took great care of our daughter, regularly cleaning her and providing her with food," Sheila added. "My daughter's health deteriorated to the point where she refused to leave the living room, not even wanting to get off the sofa or go to the bathroom. So we had to place towels on the sofa to absorb her feces and urine." Their explanation sounded like a very understandable attempt at care, but the reality witnessed by the police and emergency personnel raised significant questions about the level of care and responsibility the couple had during the time Lacey lived on that couch. The couple further explained, "The reason we didn't take Lacey to the doctor is that she refused to go for health checkups. They insisted that Lacey's mental state was stable while she was alive. Although she had difficulty moving, she had not completely lost her ability to move. If she experienced any physical discomfort, she could move by herself." These words were offered as a justification for not seeking medical help, but they only intensified the contradictions when compared to the horrific reality that Lacey endured. Prosecutor Sam D'Aquila expressed doubts about the couple's testimony. He suggested that Lacey may have endured extreme pain before her death, and the primary cause could have been severe neglect from her parents. D'Aquila speculated that the couple may have abandoned their daughter to die as a way to free themselves from the burden of caring for her. Forensic Dr. Bickham later recounted the details on News Nation. "As soon as I stepped into the house, a pungent stench hit me, an overwhelming mix of feces, waste, sewage, and that unmistakable scent of death. It was unlike anything I had ever experienced. When I got closer to the body, I realized it was lying in a pit filled with liquid feces and urine." One of the forensic experts present at the scene shared their haunting feelings. "I have handled decomposed bodies and faced all kinds of death, decay, or anything else, but I have never experienced this throughout my career. I have never seen a person literally tortured and allowed to die when she still had a chance to live. I have never witnessed anything like that in my life." Another forensic expert described the horrific scene when Lacey was discovered. "She wasn't decomposed, she had rotted in her own body, in that pit, in that bizarre position, on the couch. This is one of the most disgusting and horrifying crimes I have ever encountered." He also shared the psychological impact the case had on him. "After performing Lacey's autopsy, I suffered for an entire week and could barely eat or drink. Lacey's case is the worst form of medical neglect I have ever seen. I can't think of any more adjectives or adverbs to describe it. Her death was undoubtedly the result of at least a decade of medical abandonment." They also recalled the moment when they first arrived at the scene, particularly the expression on Lacey's parents' faces. At that time, Clay appeared completely indifferent throughout the entire process and seemed emotionless, as if the deceased wasn't his daughter. Sheila sat with her head bowed into her knees, showing some sadness with a few tears rolling down, but it seemed meaningless. This triggered the forensic experts' intuition that something was off. Their emotions were completely different from the reactions of family members in other homicide cases they had encountered. There wasn't just coldness in the parents' emotions, but also many doubts about the care Lacey received. There was no evidence that Lacey had been properly fed, except for a small bag of hard candy found nearby. In fact, her stomach contained both yellow foam from the sofa and feces. Lacey's father worked for a non-profit organization, while her mother was also a member of the town council. The couple had a wide network and interacted with people from all walks of life. They had the financial means to address mental health issues and hire personal caregivers for their daughter if they truly desired to do so. However, they believed that their daughter's inability to move was due to psychological factors. They thought that she simply didn't want to leave the sofa and assumed that her issues were only psychological, believing she was completely healthy physically. After the case, the town's sheriff, Jeffrey Travis, spoke out, "I've been the sheriff here for 6 years, but this is the worst case I've ever encountered." The horror of the case not only affected him, but also left many other investigators deeply haunted. One of them shared, "I couldn't sleep or eat after investigating the case, as its horrific nature caused psychological trauma." This account highlights the severity and haunting impact of the case, leaving those who witnessed it unable to escape the lingering sense of dread. Lacey, the victim, was born in 1986 in Louisiana and was 36 years old at the time of her death. After graduating from high school, she stayed at home, living with her parents, and preferred not to go out. 27 years ago, in 1995, her family moved to the small town of Slaughter and settled in a 2-story house on Tom Drive. When they moved, Lacey was just 9 years old, energetic and adorable. She quickly made friends with the other children in the town. In 1997, as a teenager, Lacey attended a Catholic high school. At that time, Lacey was still healthy and interested in sports and joined the school's volleyball team. In the eyes of her classmates, she was a sweet and kind girl. However, it's unclear when her friends started noticing changes in Lacey. She no longer seemed interested in emotions or typical teenage topics like her peers. Instead, her interests remained the same as in her childhood. She still liked playing with Disney dolls. Lacey also gradually noticed that she was different from her peers. She became more withdrawn and hesitant to communicate with the outside world, which led to feelings of insecurity and anxiety. The last time her friends saw Lacey was in her junior year of high school. In the class photo, Lacey stands with a bright smile alongside her friends. Anyone who sees that photo would think of Lacey as a normal, happy girl, but the reality was far from that. After taking her graduation photo, she never returned to school. Following her departure from school, Lacey stayed at home and was taught by her parents. Her parents often told others that their daughter had been diagnosed by doctors with autism, a condition referred to as Asperger's syndrome. In 2021, this condition was classified by the World Health Organization as part of the autism spectrum disorder. Individuals with this disorder exhibit poor communication and social interaction skills, often showing signs of isolation and having few friends, with limited interests and repetitive behaviors. However, there are no clear abnormalities in language development and intelligence. Lacey gradually disappeared from people's sight and was rarely seen. Her life revolved around visiting the psychologist and staying at home. According to medical records, her last medical checkup was in 2001, 21 years ago, when Lacey was 16, and there has been no updated information about her mental and physical conditions since then. From that moment onward, Lacey never set foot in a hospital for checkups and rarely left her home. It wasn't until the early hours of January 3, 2022, that the case captured public attention, revealing one of the most shocking, cruel, and perplexing incidents the town had ever faced. The unfolding details sparked a wave of outrage as the community expressed profound anger and disbelief at the couple's actions. Many people wondered why their daughter had been ill for so many years without receiving effective treatment, leading to the worsening of her condition. They believed that the couple's lack of concern had resulted in this tragic outcome. John Potts, a colleague of Lacey's father, stated that the colleagues and their organization very much respected the couple, but no one knew they had a daughter. The couple had never mentioned her to anyone, and it was only after the incident that Potts learned about her. He believed they had completely failed in their responsibilities as parents and showed no concern for their daughter. "I don't understand how they could allow their daughter to suffer and die in such pain," he remarked. Robert Blades, a neighbor living close to Lacey's home, shared, "Lacey was a friendly and well-behaved child. She used to enjoy playing with other kids in the neighborhood, but when she turned about 14, her parents no longer allowed her to freely go out and play on her own anymore. The last time I saw Lacey was in 2001, when she was exercising outdoors. Her skin looked pale and seemed very weak." According to the recollections of Robert's son, Lacey was very intelligent but somewhat different. She seemed to be more interested in things meant for younger children than those of her actual age. While others around her enjoyed racing and idolizing stars, she remained absorbed in childish games and couldn't break away from them. The boy had interacted with Lacey for a short time, but the experience didn't leave him with a good feeling. By the time Lacey was 18, her personality had become more introverted, yet she still sought out friends to play with. She was constantly conflicted within herself. Robert added, 5 years before the incident, in 2017, I asked Lacey's father about her whereabouts because I hadn't seen her in years and thought she had moved away. But her father replied, "Oh no, she's still here. She's doing well." Then Clay quickly changed the subject and clearly didn't want to talk about his daughter. I also understand what he means, stopped asking, and simply assumed that Lacey had disappeared from the town. According to Lacey's parents, this was entirely their daughter's personal choice, and no one forced her to act this way. It is reported that 12 years before the incident occurred, in 2010, the couple visited the hospital to consult a doctor about their daughter's condition. The two told the doctor, "Our daughter's condition is getting worse. She has become very withdrawn, always sitting on the sofa without getting down. We've tried every way to encourage her, but nothing works." After hearing this, the doctor advised the couple to take their daughter to the hospital for inpatient treatment, but for some unknown reason, they did not follow through. Based on some clues, it can be inferred that before her death, Lacey endured 12 years of suffering on the fateful sofa in the living room. After the case, the district attorney Sam D'Aquila prepared to prosecute the couple on charges of second-degree murder. In the United States, second-degree murder is a criminal charge that refers to the act of intentionally causing someone's death without premeditation. Unlike first-degree murder, it lacks clear intent and malice aforethought. Second-degree murder typically refers to causing someone's death without prior intent, but through actions that inflict serious harm leading to death or killing in a sudden, impulsive manner. Depending on the laws of each state, the sentence for this charge varies, but the penalty is generally less severe than for first-degree murder. In Lacey Fletcher's case, the prosecution presented sufficient evidence for the grand jury to consider, allowing them to determine whether to officially indict the case. At the hearing, the jurors had to witness horrifying images of Lacey lying on the sofa, her body covered in waste, with sores and exposed bones. This imagery left many jurors feeling extremely uncomfortable and unable to bear it. Finally, the grand jury decided to indict the couple for second-degree murder with a bail amount of $300,000 for each individual. 36 hours later, the couple posted bail and was released to await their trial. After being granted bail, both decided to quit their jobs, possibly because the sudden loss of their daughter plunged them into deep sorrow and regret. What was once a time of happiness has now turned into a permanent regret. They refused to answer media inquiries, creating an atmosphere of silence around them during these difficult days. The couple's lawyer issued a statement on their behalf, stressing that they did not want to exacerbate the pain of losing their daughter, as they had already suffered more than enough. The trial was initially scheduled for February 6, 2023, but was later postponed to June 19th of the same year. During this period, District Judge Catherine Jones dismissed the second-degree murder charges against the couple. At a hearing on May 30th, District Attorney Sam D'Aquila continued to pursue a plan to refile charges against them under a new criminal offense. He hopes Lacey's parents will receive life sentences without the possibility of parole to ensure justice for their daughter's tragic death. These developments have made the public especially interested in following every step of this shocking case. To achieve this, the prosecutor proposed a maximum manslaughter sentence of 45 years in prison. On February 6, 2024, Lacey's parents accepted a plea deal for a lesser charge of manslaughter and now face up to 40 years in prison. If convicted of second-degree murder, they would have faced a mandatory life sentence without parole. By pleading guilty to manslaughter, they now have the chance for parole after 40 years, by which time they will be over 100 years old, assuming they survive and remain in good health. Their sentencing was set for March 20, 2024, marking the conclusion of a case that shocked the entire nation. Though there's no chance to start over, this is a step toward justice for Lacey and an end to the pain that her family and those who witnessed the case have endured. In this world, there are many forms of unconditional love that parents give to their children, but for the unfortunate girl Lacey, that seemingly sacred affection became the source of a tragedy that consumed both her body and spirit. Ultimately, leaving behind the harsh realities of this world is the only true escape that will allow her to rest in peace in the new world beyond. Today's video ends here. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next stories.